What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Vol Fanatic Show. The Sunday after. Great football games yesterday. Had a lot going on. My name's Skylar. Michael, how we doing, Bubba?
We're doing pretty good. Both of us had a lot going on so far. You a little bit more than I have, and as both of you can tell, I am also not at home. I am at the wife's grandparents, but we are still doing the show. First off, Skylar, I just want to say, prayers up to you, prayers up to people in Knoxville. You want to tell everybody a little bit of what's going on right now and how we almost weren't able to have the show today?
Yeah, man, let's talk about it real quick because the show is all about the games. But we actually have a wildfire in Rocky Top, and most people probably don't know about it because they do now in East Tennessee at least. But last night we were at the parents' house after the game, and we actually found out through a Facebook channel or like a group chat that we had a wildfire, and so we booked it home because we got some fur babies in the house, and we were really afraid that it was actually really close to our house. And we were right at in the fact that it's close to the house, as we have a big front window and you can actually see the fire outside our front house. But luckily, the heroes, the men and women that are fighting on this fire have really contained it well. Hasn't spread too badly, but it has been burning now for almost 24 hours. A little bit of a scare, but we're home. I think we're safe enough to do the show, and thus we're here giving our all for Tennessee, baby.
Yeah, that's all that we can do, So before we get started in with the recap from this past week, do you have any shout outs you want to give?
Actually, I do, man. Big shout out to Chris Smith at Chris Smith Agency. He's an agent here in Oak Ridge. Minor shout out. I literally called him last night. I was like, hey man, I don't know how bad this thing is. If I lose everything, like, am I good? And he was like, brother, you shouldn't worry about a thing. Like, we got you. Just take care of your family. I said, yes, sir. But he's been a long time listener. He's been listening since the very first show we've ever done. He always calls me on Tuesday mornings. And the reason why it's Tuesday mornings and not Monday mornings is because he always listens to it going to our BNI meeting that we do. And he'll call me after the BNI meeting and we'll talk ball for about 15, 20 minutes. And, he's actually really invested in us and loves what we do, supports us. He calls me, like I said, every week. And so he absolutely deserves it. But side story, I believe his daughter is a student at ETSU. And she was able to actually share the show to, I guess, their campus Snapchat. And it got 1.3 thousand views. So massive shout out to her, Chris Smith. We appreciate everything y'all do to help grow our channel. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
That's awesome. My shout out this week is going to be to the wife's grandparents, my grandparents-in-law, for letting me do the podcast here. We had a little get together this weekend because we're helping move the in-laws into their new house. So they're allowing me to do the podcast here so we can stay on time and get the podcast out to you guys.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And love everything about that. Family's everything, and love that y'all are able to help out and that they support, because they watch every time we go live, and we greatly appreciate that. But without further ado, man, you want to jump straight into this recap against UConn?
Yeah, let's get into it. Well, what's your takeaways from this game right here? Because Tennessee, after the second play of the game, I texted my buddy Adam and I said, well, there's the ball game right there. Tennessee went up 7-0 off of an 82-yard touchdown run from Jalen Wright, and they never looked back from there. So what are your thoughts on this game? What do you take away from this game that Tennessee had against UConn yesterday?
Yeah, well, let's be honest. It's everything they needed to do against an inferior opponent. And to all the folks out there that are saying, oh, it's UConn. Well, okay, what did Bama do against USF? Even though that it's an inferior opponent, Tennessee did exactly what you're supposed to do against that said opponent. They went out there, they scored early, they scored often, and they did exactly what I said we needed to do. And that was the fact that Joe Milton never seen the field in the second half. Now, some of that is due to the fact that the defense decided to pop off for 3 touchdowns, but also it was good to see Nico come in, and he handled the offense very well. But what were your initial thoughts of the game? But to me, I felt like it was just everything you needed to do against the inferior opponent.
Absolutely. And, it's something that we haven't seen from Tennessee this year. Virginia, for the most part, it was kind of like yesterday's game, but there were still times where Tennessee, they didn't show up. They had some lulls in the game. You didn't see it against Austin P. And for the most part, I won't say for the most part, but there was times in that UTSA game that you didn't see it, and you got Nico in later than you really wanted to.
Yep.
So yesterday, that was exactly what we wanted to see. I had mixed feelings about the start of the second half because for those that didn't watch the game, they were watching other games, which is fair because there were some good games on at the same time as Tennessee.
No, absolutely.
Tennessee had 2 defensive touchdowns right off the bat in the second half. Was it 2 pick sixes or was it 1 pick six and then the scoop and score for Tyler Barron?
I believe the order went scoop and score in the first half to end it, I think. And then it was pick six to open up the second half. One was by Tank McCullough. The other one was by Aaron Beasley. One was a poorly thrown ball. The other one, Aaron Beasley just cut the route. And so, but I mean, as a defensive perspective, like I love to see it because we've not done a great job, getting, forcing turnovers. I'm not saying we're not bad at it, but it's just not been something that really takes over a game other than like maybe South Carolina. But no, I love to see the defense scoring points. I think that's the first time I think our defense maybe has scored 3 defensive touchdowns and like, I don't know how
history. I think it's
Tennessee's history. I thought, okay, it was insane. I know, no, it's not Tennessee's history because I remember there was a game back in the Tyler Brady era. I think it was Tyler Brady.
I know which one you're thinking about. It's 2013 Western Kentucky. But
where it was like 5 plays, 5
turnovers. 5 turnovers.
But maybe you're right. Maybe not 3 touchdowns. So I mean, but no, that was crazy to see. But let's talk about, and I want to talk about it first and foremost because I think it's the most important thing to talk about. Joe Milton,
Joe Milton was a beast.
He played his best game, and I'm not even talking about like productivity. I'm talking decision making. I'm talking accuracy. I'm like everything about it was just perfection, brother. When he hit Squirrel White on that crossing route down the middle, about 30 yards deep, and he hit him in stride, dude, that changes the game. Because what I'm saying is, even if the wide receiver catches the ball, which we've had problems doing that, but if the ball's thrown behind him, he likely doesn't get any yards after the catch.
Correct. Yeah.
When you can hit your wide receiver in stride and man coverage, or maybe too deep, but you can hit him straight in the middle of the field, you let him make a football move like immediately, changes the game, man. And if we can do that against Missouri, I really like our chances. But hats off to
the big thing is that's something we haven't seen Joe Milton do this year. Early in the season, he's been missing those throws, whether it be throwing it high, throwing it behind the receiver, things like that. So it was great to see that. And once Squirrel gets past that defender there is nobody in the nation that's going to catch him because of his breakaway speed. Absolutely. I mean, I was talking to Dad and I was like, hey, because we went to the game, we enjoyed it. I kind of got a little emotional because they had a video of Pat Summitt singing Rocky Top, and like everybody in the stands was singing along to it. And that kind of tore me up a little bit. Yeah. I hate Alzheimer's. I hate cancer, dude. I hate it all. But anyways, Joe Milton, I couldn't remember other than one like screen pass that he overthrew, or it was an incompletion in general. Like I couldn't remember him throwing incomplete passes. So looked up the stats and the dude went 11 of 14. So, a couple of incompletions, 254 yards and 2 touchdowns on 11 completions. But I'll say this as well. One of those incompletions Joe Milton had, it was the Hail Mary right before the half. So I don't even count that one.
So maybe that's why I couldn't think of another one. Cause I'm like, man, I don't remember him throwing incomplete passes. Like he was on the money. He was accurate. And then Ramel Keaton didn't drop the ball when he was wide open. I mean, we're growing. Look, I'm not going to say we're peaking, but we are playing our best ball in the month of November so far. And that kind of excites me, man. There is still a path, boys. Now, I know y'all don't want to hear it, but there is still a path we can get to Atlanta.
Yeah, there's a path. A lot has to happen. Well, all right, really, a lot doesn't have to happen. It's simple, but it is very far-fetched for it to happen.
That is fair.
But there is
the path. Talk about, so, like, Florida lost already, so they're out. Yes. And because Missouri lost to Georgia, their tiebreaker, like they're not really gonna be a factor. It's really down to Tennessee and Georgia. And what needs to happen is Ole Miss has to beat Georgia this week, and we have to beat Missouri for a winner-take-all game against Georgia in Knoxville. And I promise you, if that happens, oh my goodness, bro. Well, I don't think it's likely, but it's there, dude.
And here's the thing about that game. I haven't taken a look at the schedule for that week, but Tennessee and Georgia is the game next week. Next week is the ultimate game. All eyes are going to be on that game because it is the biggest game on the schedule. But
it would mean more. It would mean more if we win this week and Ole Miss actually upsets Georgia, because then not only is it the game, but it's also the game to get to Atlanta.
It's the game that's going to decide the East.
Exactly, and that would add a lot of spice. Because that game's going to lose a lot even if we win against Missouri. If they beat Ole Miss, they've clinched the East. I mean, there's still a lot to play for. I get that, but at that point, we're just trying to be spoilers, and there's really nothing in it for us other than to say that we beat them. Which that in of itself is a lot, but no, the path, like you said, it's not really a lot. It's just kind of unlikely, but is it? I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy things this year, and
this is 2023, so anything can happen.
Dude, Clemson beat Notre Dame.
I wonder what Tyler in Spartanburg is doing this morning. If he's going to call in to Dabo's show this week, but getting back to the game yesterday a little bit, I want to kind of quit looking at the starters right now and look at the future of Tennessee, because Nico yesterday, it's the first time that he's gotten to get into the game with the starters. He had one series with the starters, and man, the way that he managed that offense yesterday, you've got to be excited for Tennessee football's future going forward at quarterback. And not only that, I have been a big Cam Seldon guy since he first came in. And with him and Khalifa Keith coming up, and you're still going to have Dylan Sampson next year. More than likely, Jalen Wright, Jabari Small are gone. But with Dylan Sampson as your speed back, and you've got two bigger power backs in Cam Seldon and Khalifa Keith, that is exciting. And then you look at the wide receivers next year. Brew McCoy, he can come back. I think he'll probably go to the combine, go ahead and get ready for the draft. But who knows? I would love to see him back. But with the way Dante Thornton is playing now on the outside, and you still got Squirrel White that will probably come. I think he's just a true sophomore, isn't he?
Yeah, he'll be your slot receiver for the next year or two. So
he'll be back next year, and then you still got Nimrod and Caleb Webb out there. You've got some other young, talented wide receivers, along with guys coming in. And I'd loved watching Ethan Davis yesterday. The freshman tight end. He impressed. And then going over to the defensive side of the ball, you've got some really young players that came in and they showed out yesterday.
Ricky Gibson played amazing at the cornerback position. Yes, and for the kids that don't know, he's a true freshman. He was a 4-star recruit. Big battle that we won out. But that kid played lights out. He played a lot of the game too. I mean, as he deserved to. He played lights out. But yeah, I
want to mention is Andre Turrentine. He had a fantastic game as well.
Well, what's crazy is he's the transfer from Ohio State who kind of hasn't panned out really. He hasn't. I don't know what's not been translating from practice to end the game, but he played pretty well. I mean, he held his own. It's his second year, I think, in the defense, and I think he's still got another year or two of eligibility. So hopefully he can kind of turn things around and add some depth. Because look, the thing about this game is, I mean, that was so valuable to our guys. People don't understand that you got to have a game like this to get your second, your twos, your threes and fours involved, because it's about to be transfer season, and you're going to have to get these guys in a game to get a taste of it to make them want to stay, and this was the perfect opportunity, and they took advantage of it to get literally everyone in the game. And what about D. Williams at wide receiver?
D. Williams, a wide receiver. I think he was a little bit nervous that first one I was throwing to him because he missed it, but he did redeem himself.
He got his butt chewed out, I think, in a nice way. The very first play he was in, I'm pretty sure it was supposed to be a bubble screen to him, and he went down and started blocking, so Joe Milton had to improvise and take off and run. And so he immediately got pulled. I'm pretty sure he got a stern talking to, and then he went back in the game. But what impressed me is he bounced back.
Absolutely.
So, but I think, he was electric, the way he cut up the field, and he got 10 yards on like his one reception. I mean, that kid's he's going to be something, man. And, but no, like that game was super valuable. Joe Milton and Nico and the boys, they spread the ball around. Everybody got touchdowns, it felt like. Jalen Wright, though, on 8 rushes, 113 yards. My man averaged.
One of them was that big 82-yard run, but still, he's impressive.
So 7 runs for 50 yards. I mean, either way, or 40 yards. So, I mean, the man's putting in work. I think he's the best back in the league. No, it was a great game. Great game by the defense, too. It was kind of frustrating that they would give up some big plays, but overall they didn't break. So, big game.
UConn's tight end, though, that Justin Jolie, man, he's impressive. He is very impressive. He did very well in that game against Tennessee. So, I mean, you got to give him credit. But, one last note that I have on this game, I'm not sure if you have anything else to add or not, but how heartwarming was it that we got to see Navy Schuler get in that game with his dad, Heath, on the sidelines? That was awesome.
I was actually pissed. Let me say this, because that's going to get taken out of context. Yes, that was an amazing moment, but you're already up by 56. Let him score, dude. Like, you had the momentum. Yeah. He could have ran it in. Like, at that point, you're not really playing a respect game because you're already up 56. What's another 7 points, dude? Everybody in the stands. I want to give a shout out to the fans, bro. Let me tell you something. There is no reason, Robert, I'll get to your comment in a second, by the way. There is no reason why there was still 101,000 folks at that game in the third quarter. But you want to know why they were there? Because they're just as excited as we are about seeing the future, bro. Absolutely. I'm telling you what, man. And I recorded it. I've got a video on my phone. When Nico broke the huddle and was coming out in the first offensive possession, and it felt like it was the middle of the third quarter because it took a while. But, man, the crowd went crazy. Joe Milton was right there going crazy with us. Joe Milton's just as excited as we are, I think, about Nico getting to take over this team next year. And that's the leadership.
Yeah, the excitement that his teammates showed after he threw that touchdown pass, his first of many in a UT uniform to McAllen Castles, it was unbelievable. I mean, the support that the team has for Nico, it's unreal.
Oh yeah, and that play call was amazing. I wanted to see that play call. So you remember back in 2021 when we unveiled the very first blackout uniform against South Carolina, and Hendon Hooker kind of had that fake run, Crouch, and then dumped it over the top to Javonte Payton. That I'm like, where is that play call at? Like, that's a freaking sweet play. Why did we only run it once? And then, like, that's kind of what Nico did. He kind of dropped back, faked the quarterback draw, post up, threw it straight to McAllen Castles. And man, McAllen Castles is a hell of a tight end, bro. What a steal that we got from the JUCO ranks. And the catch that he made on 3rd and 6, which Nico kind of threw it high, but he went up and boy got bunnies. Like he brought it down. And man, just all around, I hate that we talked this long about a game that, it's UConn. But again, to the Bama fans that have been saying that on TikTok and whatnot, how did y'all handle USF? I mean, like, come on, man. At the end of the day, you got to take care of business, and that's exactly what we did.
So you have anything else on this game?
No, man, I don't. Robert made a comment about the whole Ole Miss trying to upset Georgia thing, and he said that the problem is the Ole Miss defense is just not that good. Good offense, but allowed too many points. He just can't see Georgia losing. And, like, I agree with that, but I'm afraid that he's got maybe two teams confused, and that's the fact that LSU is the team, which I guess Ole Miss is the same way in a sense. LSU is the team that has – I mean, they remind me of USC, bro. They've got the number one offense, but then their defense is like Biden's border policy. Like, they let everyone in the end zone. It's insane.
And, we'll get to touch back on this in the prediction show because, Ole Miss and Georgia played this week, so we'll discuss that a little bit more whenever we get to it. Which game do you want to talk about first? We've got it was a full noon slot yesterday, so You want to hit the South Carolina Jacksonville State game first because it shouldn't take long having to talk about this one.
Yeah, let's talk about it. First off, congratulations, South Carolina.
Yeah, congratulations.
They got the win, 38-28.
But let me say this: if it wasn't for the pick six that was thrown late in the fourth quarter, I think Jacksonville State wins this game.
They would have lost. And I think
South Carolina was up 31-28, and Jacksonville State was inside the 20. I mean, just driving down the field.
They were at least going to tie the game, at what you would think would be worst case scenario. But no, massive mistake by the quarterback there. But, I think every Gamecock fan knows that game shouldn't have been that close. And I think they know they got gifted because, like, everybody that didn't watch that game, which is going to be a lot of people, they're just going to look at the final result and just be like, okay, well, they took care of business. And then the moment you do just a scratching of the surface, you realize that they had a real shot to lose this game.
Absolutely. And if it was not for Spencer Rattler and Xavier Legette, they would have lost that game because Spencer Rattler yesterday was 27-38 for 399 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he did have an interception. Xavier Legette yesterday, 9 receptions, 217 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That is a 24.1 yard average per reception.
Man, I'm losing my words. Spencer Rattler's gone next year. I don't even know if their backup's gotten any time. I don't know who their backup is. Legette, if he was smart, would enter the draft. I'm not sure how old he is, but
Xavier Legette is a senior, so he will.
Okay, yeah, that's what I figured. Where does South Carolina go?
That is a very good question. I was discussing with my father-in-law this morning. All right, so Shane Beamer will not be gone after this season because he has overachieved in his first 2 seasons at South Carolina, especially last year at the end of the year. So he's got that going for him for this season. That's what's going to keep him here is keep him with his job is the success he's had over the past 2 years. But this is going to be a big mark on him. So is the hot seat on Shane Beamer for next year, especially if he can't hit that transfer portal hard, and he's got to get some help on that offensive line. I know that they've had injuries, but that offensive line it's not good.
No, it's nothing on that team is good other than Spencer and Legette. Their defense has steadily declined throughout the season. In fact, they wasn't really good to begin with. And then their offensive line has given up, I think, 9 sacks in the very first game of the season, and it's not gotten any better since. It's terrible. But no, go ahead.
So also, we've talked about the running game for South Carolina all season long. Against Jacksonville State, I know they're not a bad team. They only rushed for 89 yards.
No, there's non-existent. It's Spencer Rattler or nothing. I mean, it is literally that's their offense, man. It's terrible. Now, I did like that they tried to get the running backs involved in the passing game. I think that helped him out a lot. Like if something down the field wasn't there, just swing it out to your running backs. I mean, that's kind of what you see in the pros a lot, especially with like Austin Eckler with the Chargers. I don't know why I brought that up, but if Herbert doesn't have anything down the field, he just dunks it down. And that's what I think they're trying to incorporate to kind of help Spencer out rather than just throwing the ball away.
Or using the Tennessee reference there, Alvin Kamara with the Saints.
Yeah, same thing. Absolutely. And I mean, when a linebacker's playing man on a running back, the running back's going to outrun him to the edge every time. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man. I'm not really too impressed with South Carolina. I'm not really too impressed with the next team we're about to talk about. And that is the fact that Florida ain't going to make a bowl game. Hot take.
Oh, they're not. I was discussing that this morning with my father-in-law as well. They're not going to win a game the rest of the year because they're going to play Missouri or they're playing LSU this week, which is going to be a loss. Do they travel to or do they host Missouri? I can't remember.
They will be, one second, at Missouri, at Como.
Okay, so they're going to lose that game as well. And then you got
brother. They got home and home against Tennessee and Florida back. Okay.
Yeah. Nice. So you've got LSU and then you've got Missouri on the road and then you have a game against Florida State. Florida's not going to win a game the rest of the year. They're going to finish the season 5-7, and Billy Napier's going to be on the hot seat by the end of the
And
year.
once again, Tennessee fans, as I said we would, is going to look back at that damn game in September and say, how the hell did we lose that game?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Got to stop losing to Florida, man. But I've got hope. I think Nico's going to be that guy that goes undefeated against Florida. Mark my words. And
I have also
Florida's got a lot of talent coming in. I will say that. I think Billy Napier's got like a top 5 recruiting class. But now let me say this: if they can't win another game to go bowl eligible, I would look for some of those guys to dip out. I don't see how they stay committed. But yeah, that's just my opinion.
I'm with you, but let's talk about the winning team, because I've got an apology to give here to Arkansas.
You do.
I said that firing the offensive coordinator was not going to solve your problems, and I know that they still had a scoop and score yesterday, so you had a defensive touchdown. But man, Arkansas,
it's a team that scored 3. I was going to say, it's a team that scored 3 against Mississippi State, and they turn around and put up 39 against Florida.
Yeah, the most.
I guess you want to say 30. Yeah, that was a hell of a game. And I hate that I missed it, man. I was, like I said, I was at Neyland when this was going on. But Florida, and I kind of turned the page with them a little bit, because all season long, I had said that my mind on Florida hasn't changed and wasn't going to change. But then they beat South Carolina in comeback fashion in Columbia, and I'm like, okay, that was actually pretty impressive. But then you got to look bigger picture. It was South Carolina.
Yeah.
Florida, man, what a joke. I predicted them to go 4-8 this year, and I should have been right. But our boys didn't come through. I will forever be mad. But like you said, let's talk about the winning team. I just hate Florida, if you didn't know. I'm a Tennessee fan. I'm allowed to. KJ Jefferson had a game. KJ Jefferson had a game. 20 of 31, 255, 2 touchdowns, had the interception. That's been an issue. But Rocket Sanders, Raheem Sanders? No.
Sanders.
Yeah. 18 attempts, 100 yards, 103 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, but KJ had the rushing touchdown.
And KJ was for 92 yards yesterday on 17 attempts.
That's a lot of attempts. That's a lot of attempts for a quarterback. But yeah. But then you had, what about my man Armstrong, though? The wide receiver there had 3 receptions, 103 yards. That's only good for about 35 yards per catch. That's insane, dude.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the crazier thing is, he didn't even have a touchdown in that game. It was just 3 long receptions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, as Robert said, shout out to Sam Pittman. I mean, that's their first SEC win of the season in November, and it came at the Swamp. That's not an easy place to win. And Florida tried to bring out the blackout uniforms, and they might need to keep those up for the rest of the. I don't know.
They might. I don't know. And I wasn't totally impressed with the blackout uniforms. There's a lot of teams, Tennessee's being one of them, and I know I might be biased, but most black uniforms look pretty good. I wasn't a big fan of Florida's.
Florida's got too much going on. And let's just be honest, Tennessee's got the best blackout uniform ever, dude. Like, let's just be real. But no,
that's right.
Big game for Arkansas, man. That really does change the trajectory. It makes them firing that offensive coordinator, like you said, makes it look like the right move immediately. And excited to see where things go from here with Arkansas. I mean, it's a long road for Arkansas, but let me see what they've got coming up.
Well, you got Auburn this week at home, and
I would have originally said that's a loss immediately. I would have said there's no way, because I do feel like Auburn. I mean, I've said Vanderbilt could beat Arkansas, and that was before, obviously, this week. But like you mentioned, you got Auburn. That I would say may be a toss-up game, considering it's at Arkansas.
I actually just looked at it, and after that game yesterday that Arkansas played, they are now a 2.5-point favorite at home over.
As it should be. It's a pick 'em. You give the 3 points to the home team, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, I agree with it. You got FIU And then you end the game, or you end the season with Missouri. Man, it's going to be hard, but the path is still there to get bowl eligible in an ugly season, man.
You can salvage this season if you are Arkansas in a season that I thought was completely lost after that Mississippi State game. So I'm rooting for Arkansas to do that because I do like Sam Pittman. You've mentioned it too. You like Sam Pittman. Has he disappointed you? Yes, because you've been on this Sam Pittman train for a while.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the thing. You've got bad coaching, and then you have bad teams. I think just unfortunately for Sam Pittman, even though I think he's the guy, he just had a bad team this year. Injuries kind of bit them. And it happens, man. Like, I think we need to get out of the whole fantasy that the first time you have a disappointing season, you just can your coach. I think that's coming from a Tennessee fan, man. I really do. Like, it's so frustrating, and you always delay the program by so many years when you do that. But that's just my opinion.
The thing about Arkansas and Sam Pittman is it's been the last couple of years where they've had these high expectations, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah,
you get these high expectations for coaches that it's almost impossible for them to be met. And each year that Sam Pittman has been there, except for one, I believe, he's underachieved those expectations.
Well, you got to remember, too, when Sam Pittman first got there, Lane Kiffin was new to Ole Miss. You had Auburn that was going in the dumps. You had LSU that was going in the dumps with Ed Orgeron as soon as they won the championship. And they went like 0-0 or 0-10 the next season. He got canceled. So, like, Fayetteville was also benefiting from other West teams being really down. So now you got these teams that have got their new hires. They've been in the system for several years. They're starting to kind of fall behind again. But like I said, I still think that it's just maybe a bad team. KJ Jefferson and Raheem or Rocket Sanders, and then who? As far as the offense goes, the offensive line has not been a great help for them. And, they haven't had that Traylon Burks emerge as a wide receiver. I mean, they've had some flashes of games, but just not had that takeover guy. So, no, big things I would hope to come for Sam Pittman after these coaching changes in the offseason. But, it's proven, man. It's hard to win in the SEC, especially when you're not staying on top of the game. Florida, on the other hand, has LSU, Missouri, and Florida State to finish their season. As we mentioned, it's going to be hard for them to make a bowl game, man.
But I will defend Florida too on this right here, because we mentioned at the beginning of the season, Florida, they had the toughest schedule in the conference this year. The only other team that I can really compare to that was South Carolina also had a tough schedule.
Yep.
So, and both of those teams have not done well this year. Florida has overachieved from what I thought that they would, because you got that win
up to this point. Yeah, but really, but let's be honest, the only thing that's impressed us is them beating Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look back at the preseason expectations for Florida, the over-under for Florida win total this year was 5.5. So if they don't win a game, then they're not going to reach that win total. They're going to be just under it. So,
hey, Vegas makes money for a reason, brother.
That's exactly right. You got anything else on this Arkansas-Florida game?
Man, I kind of want to move ahead to a really big game that happened.
Yeah, I'm ready to talk about this game. We have Ole Miss and Texas A&M. Final score in this one, 38-35. And I went back and I watched this game. I was keeping up with it as the Tennessee game was going on. And, man, what a ball game this ended up being after it looked like it was going to be a blowout early on.
Yeah, man. Texas A&M was doing everything that I thought they needed to do to make this game competitive. Like, I thought A&M actually had a chance in this game. Like I told you, I thought Ole Miss would get the win, but when it came to upset of the week, Tom, I seen a path for A&M getting this win. I did not expect a 300-yard day for Max Johnson, but I just expected A&M's defense to run, which is funny because that actually none of that happened. The way I thought it would happen, it didn't. It ended up being, like you mentioned, a bit of a shootout, 38-35. And Ole Miss gets the win. And honestly, I kind of feel like it was gifted. I didn't watch this game, but I do know that in the final 2 minutes of the game, A&M missed 2 field goals.
And not to mention the fact that Ole Miss on that final drive alone They dropped an interception. There was a fumble that Texas A&M recovered, and then they had an interception overturned because the Ole Miss defender was bobbling it as he went out of bounds. So Ole Miss, I mean, they had every opportunity in the world to just ice this game away with turnovers, and they could not do it.
Could not do it, but they did it. I'm kind of glad that they beat A&M. It kind of adds a little bit of spice to the game coming up next weekend with Georgia. Because if they would have dropped this game, pretty much all the hype and whatnot. I mean, it was still been a big game. Don't get me wrong. Kind of the same thing with Tennessee. It's still a big game, but it's just not near as much on the bone as you would hope. Not as much meat on the bone per se, but no, Ole Miss gets the win. I still don't know if. I mean, let's be honest. A&M's lost 4 games this year, and haven't they all been one possession?
See, other than the Miami game, yes.
Yeah, the Miami game was not a blowout, but sort of. But yeah, they were in a 1-score game with
Alabama, Tennessee, and now Ole Miss.
Yeah, that's a tough way to lose. 6 combined 12 points and 3 losses.
Yeah, I do want to shout out the turning point in the game, because Ole Miss was up 14-0 early, and they were driving down the field again. They should have gone up 21-0, but there was 2 straight holding penalties that Ole Miss had that ended up pushing them back, and they attempted a field goal that Texas A&M blocked and took back for a touchdown, and that changed the whole momentum of the game. And from there, it was, I don't believe until the 4th quarter Texas A&M actually took a lead, but it was, neck and neck the whole way. Texas A&M finally went up 35-31 in the 4th quarter. Ole Miss comes right back down the field and scores to go up 38-35. And then that's the final possession. Texas A&M got into field goal range, and Ole Miss ends up getting just a finger, just barely touched the kick there. And it made it just short enough to where it was no good. Ole Miss squeaks away with a win at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. It was a fantastic game all the way around. You mentioned Max Johnson threw for over 300 yards yesterday, had a touchdown and a pick. Jackson Dart had himself another day, 24 of 33 for 387 and 2 touchdowns. Quinshon Judkins did Quinshon Judkins things, and he rushed for over 100 yards and 3 touchdowns on the day.
Just a physical back, dude.
Yeah, and Trey Harris, my guy, is making tough catch after tough catch. 11 receptions for 213 yards and a touchdown yesterday.
He was making the snaggy plays. Like he was making the highlight plays. Like he went up and
it wasn't any easy catches whatsoever. Every one of them, it was, one-handed catches. It was, catching in double coverage. It was tough catches he was making. And I know Ole Miss is really happy to finally have him healthy towards the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But I guess this is just Ole Miss is having one of those years, man. Like, it doesn't feel like Ole Miss is that good, but like you look down and they're 8-1, and it's like, oh shoot, Ole Miss is there, because let's be honest, the West race mathematically is down to Ole Miss and Bama. LSU taking the loss last night, which we'll talk about. They're out of it. It's down to now Ole Miss and Alabama, and Ole Miss is going to need Bama to lose 2 games, which is not likely at all. But and then they would have to win out. But they're still there. Regardless, they could be the team that has a really nice New Year's Six bowl if they can figure out a way to kind of win out or whatnot. They look good.
I was also going to mention this right here. Ole Miss, this is even more unlikely, in my opinion, than Tennessee making the SEC championship game. Ole Miss has an outside shot to make a playoff game. There is a whole lot of stuff that has to happen, because there's still 5 undefeated teams in college football.
You're asking for chaos.
Yeah, I mean, you've also got teams like Texas that have 1 loss that, as long as they win out, Texas is probably in. You've got Oregon that could cause some chaos. You could have 2 1-loss Pac-12 teams, and one of those will make the playoffs unless there's another loss somewhere along the line. But
Let's talk about your scenario, though, real quick. Let's talk about it. So you're basically saying that it would be 2 SEC teams in, but like the way I think the Ole Miss gets in, the only way that they get in is if it's 2 SEC West teams that get in.
No. Georgia. So Georgia, if they get beat by Ole Miss and Georgia plays Alabama, we'll just use that scenario. Georgia plays Alabama for the SEC West or for the SEC championship, and Georgia wins that one. Georgia is in. Do you agree?
Yeah, they're undefeated. No. They have the one loss against Ole Miss.
But they're the SEC champion.
Yes.
All right. So Ole Miss has one loss, and they have beaten the SEC champion. You will have one undefeated Big Ten team, either Michigan or Ohio State, unless something crazy happens down the road somewhere. You've got Florida State is probably going to be in. I don't see a path to them losing a game the rest of the year. You've got Washington right now is undefeated, but they have to play Oregon again. They've still got to play Utah this week, I believe. So I think the Pac-12 is going to end up cannibalizing itself because of how good they are out west. And you look, Texas loses one more game in the Big 12, and there is no team in the Big 12 that has less than 2 losses. Each one of them will have at least 2 losses. So Ole Miss has to win out, but there is a path that they could be a one-loss non-conference champion and make the playoffs. But there is a lot of chaos that has to happen for that.
Yeah, but that scenario makes way more sense than what I was about to freaking drag out. So, because I was going to think that, I was thinking that Georgia wouldn't, they would lose to Ole Miss, obviously, and then either they'd have to lose the championship game. Basically, it would have to be a 2-loss East team, right? So that they can't go in, and then Bama would have to win out and be a 1-loss team in because they're the champion, and then because Ole Miss's only loss is to Bama, kind of like how last year our only loss was to Georgia, we were kind of guaranteed in due to the chaos, and then we lost to South Carolina. That's the way I thought it was going to happen, is basically Bama be the number 1, Ole Miss kind of slip in at 3 or 4. And the only reason why I say 3 is because they would try to avoid that rematch unless it was for the championship game. You can say all you want to, but playoff committee 1,000% tries to do that. They don't want to see a rematch of a game because it doesn't prove anything, really. So they do try to split that up. But no, okay, that makes a lot of sense. But
yeah. And we got off on that tangent there, but there is still a path for Ole Miss to have some postseason success this year. Have a chance to the big game, but
it's a tough schedule. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they control their own destiny too. And of course, a lot of things still have to happen for them to be able to get to that point. But they just have to keep winning. That's absolutely all that they have to do. You have anything else on this Texas A&M Ole Miss game? Because all right, let's talk about Texas A&M for a second, because the path to them the rest of the season is going to be 7-5. You've still got so you got Mississippi State this week, then you have a non-conference game. I forget who it is, but it's Abilene Christian out of Texas. And then you got to play LSU at the end of the year. So you're going to have a 7-5 season this year, in my opinion, in a year that, once again, you very easily should have been 8-4, 9-3 or better.
That's what I think. I think 8-4 is still very possible, man. LSU's good, but they got banged up last night. And I think 8-4 is definitely possible. But then again, I don't trust Jimbo that much to think that he can win out.
And here's another thing. Where is that game being played? Because if it is in Death Valley,
it is.
Okay, it's in Death Valley. So it doesn't line up for Jimbo to win that game at the end of the season, because they will be an underdog on the road, and he is winless as an underdog on the road in the SEC.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a path to it, but it is a very tall task.
I ain't about to say what I ain't about to say. Hey, look, you're absolutely right on that. 0-9 on the road. That's pretty terrible. But let's move this show along, because we're about 45 minutes in already, and we've still got 3 games to talk about, maybe even 4 games to talk about. Let's see. Let's talk about the 3:30 CBS game next, and that is the fact that Missouri, once again, pushed Georgia to the fourth quarter. Unfortunately, came short. It's 21-30. Georgia gets a massive win, really gets control of the East after that. What are your initial thoughts on this game? And tell me what you thought about it.
So I'm not saying that Georgia is going to get beat the rest of the year, but the Georgia team that showed up yesterday looked beatable. They were not the team that just absolutely throttled Kentucky. They were not the team that dismantled Florida last week. This was the Georgia team that almost didn't look like that they were excited to play this game. And if you take away the third quarter of this game, Missouri wins it. Georgia outscored Missouri 14-3 in the third quarter to open up the game a little bit. Carson Beck had another decent day, 21-32, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns. And all right, the thing about Carson Beck is he does not turn the ball over much, which is something that you need. You need a game manager for a Georgia team that is this good all the way around, and he's doing exactly that. But Missouri's pass rush got to Georgia yesterday. That's the most sacks that Georgia has given up on the season. It was 3 sacks yesterday. Missouri's defense was giving them fits on the front line, but what I saw from Missouri was a team that they are very capable of beating anybody. Do they have quite the Jimmies and Joes that they need to beat a team like Georgia? No, not yet. But on any given day, if we see a Georgia team like we did yesterday, Missouri's got a chance.
Yeah. Well, I always talk about the middle eight, and I'm gonna have to expand it a little bit in the second quarter. But at 4 minutes, 14 seconds left to go in the half, and you get a field goal to tie the game. Great, awesome, perfect. And then coming out of the half with 11:42 left in the third quarter, you get another field goal to go up 3. You change either one of those to a touchdown, and the momentum is completely different. Now, you did your job. You drove down. You got some points. That's great, especially against Georgia. You'll take any points. But kind of like the same problem Tennessee has, and that's finishing off drives. If Missouri can find a way to finish off the drives there, you're talking about a completely different ballgame. But what I said before this game is Georgia's defense isn't dominant anymore. And I think that showed. I mean, Missouri literally ran on Georgia the way I've never seen a team not named Alabama run against Georgia. I mean, let me look at the stats. Let's see. Schrader had 22 attempts for 112 yards. He was literally averaging on the north side of 5 yards a carry against Georgia.
Yeah, when's the last time that you saw a team not named Alabama or maybe even Ohio State that ran for 150 yards on Georgia? I can't remember.
And I think it was more than that. No, it is accounting for Brady Cook. Brady Cook has some timely run plays. But no, I don't know, man, because even Kentucky's good running games, they never ran good against Georgia. Georgia's always had such a dominant front seven, and I just don't think they're that dominant this year. Now, before that gets blown out of context, I still think they're a championship team. I think they're going to make the playoff, but I don't know if it's a guaranteed win, because if you have to face off against a team like Michigan who can run, if your front seven shows up like they did against Missouri, I think that Michigan back's a little bit better than Schrader. And Schrader's pretty good, though. I'm not, dissing him at all.
Well, at least Georgia won't have to worry about Connor Stallions anymore. But
yeah, he did get fired.
You're right about that.
Yeah, man. But Carson Beck, still that guy. I think he got shook at some point in that game, though. I watched a little bit of it before the news that I had to kind of dip. I just felt like he was not comfortable there for a little bit of the game. I almost felt like he was out of rhythm. Couldn't get third downs for some reason. I think that hurt Georgia. That's why they kind of fell into a lull in that second quarter. And
a shout out to Robert here. He's got it exactly right. He said Mizzou played them tough. It was 10-10 at the half, And then they went up 13-10 in the second or in the third quarter, as you mentioned. He said Mizzou is a solid team all around in the game for 3.5 quarters, and they were. But to Robert's point there, they were in the game for 3.5 quarters. You cannot take any time of the game off, and we've seen Tennessee do that in their 2 losses this season. We've seen it in some of their wins too, but it just hadn't shown up as much as the 2 losses Tennessee had. You take any time off in a game, and a good team is going to beat you, and that's what Georgia did yesterday. Missouri did not show up for just half of a quarter, that third quarter, and Georgia took advantage and scored 2 touchdowns, and it was out of reach at that point.
Yeah, Schrader did have 113 yards, Robert. Luther Burden was quiet in the second half because he was banged up. I think he kind of twisted an ankle on a touchdown reception that he ended up dropping, I think. It would have been an insanely hard catch anyways. But, yeah, he was a little banged up, but he came back. I mean, he tried to play it out. But, yeah, I mean, there was injuries on both sides. I mean, Georgia lost their number 1 tackler in the second half, I believe, as well. And I think he was in a sling before the end of the game. So I hope he's all good. I mean, I hate to see anybody get hurt, especially taken out of the game. But it was a game that Missouri played them well. They played them well at Sanford Stadium. And that kind of shocked me because we've seen Georgia kind of have lulls against teams that you didn't really get up for. And I think that's exactly what happened is they didn't get up for it. They knew coming into this game, this was a big game. And yet they still they came out flat. I mean, you're right. They only scored 3 points in the first quarter. Only scored 10 in the first half. And that was kind of like the beginning of the season Georgia team where they just started super slow. But what is that not the story of the college football season as a team not playing for 4 quarters?
I mean, you look at, I don't know if you saw it or not. Ohio State yesterday was down 9-7 at the half to Rutgers. And but they've done that numerous times this year. Ohio State has. It'll either be a close game at halftime or they'll be down at the half and have to have a big second half to spread it out. And they ended up winning the game, I think 35-16 or something like that. But
that's Ohio State football, brother. As long as I can remember, even as a kid, you'd see Ohio State. Oh, they're losing to who? They're losing to Minnesota, dude. And then third quarter, they blow it open. They're up by 40. I don't know why they do that, but that is so common for Ohio State. But I'm more talking like Tennessee being up 20-7 on Bama and then not doing snot in the second half. I'm talking in the first half against Florida, Tennessee, not doing anything in the first half. But let's get off the Tennessee train. Look at LSU last night. They played Bama really hard for about 35 minutes and then didn't do anything. Now, I get it. Jaden Daniels got hurt. I honestly think, this is my humble opinion as a Tennessee fan, unbiased to the game, that hit on Jaden Daniels is very dirty. Don't see how that wasn't a targeting.
You should be targeting.
But Bama fans are going to sit here and say, cry about it. Yeah, okay. It must be nice to be not punished for bullcrap. But anyway,
to your point, LSU did the same thing as Florida State at the beginning of the year. They played very well in that first half, and they were very much in the game. I can't remember if they had a lead at halftime or not, but then second half, Florida State blew them wide open, and LSU couldn't do anything. So, and it's not just Tennessee, LSU. There's other teams in the SEC as well. But you're 100% correct. It's been the story of the 2023 college football season is teams having lulls or teams starting off hot and then cooling off, or even teams that start off cool and then heat up later in the game. And depending on when it happens to you, you can win or lose a ball game based on that.
That's exactly right. But let's talk about the road for Georgia. They got Ole Miss next week and will likely be a number 1 versus number 10-ish team. If the new rankings come out Tuesday, we'll find out because the AP does not matter anymore because it's November. And that's going to be a solid game. It's going to be at home again, which I think Georgia's going to need that. I think they need to have that home game. I think it's already confirmed that game day is going to be there. And so it's going to be a crazy environment. It's going to be a big game. I kind of want to give a slide shout out to the East in general, man. You got the standings as we're looking at it is Georgia 9-0 overall, 6-0 in the conference. And then you got Missouri and Tennessee at 7-2, 3-2 in the conference. And then you got Kentucky right there at 6-3, 3-3. Florida's 3-3, but 5-4. So you got 5 of your 7 total teams in the East with a winning record so far. That's saying something because the East has kind of been down for quite some time. Other than Georgia, they've been kind of carrying the load for the East. But no, man. As far as for Missouri, they're playing your boys, yours truly, this coming Saturday. And that's going to be a very big game to kind of determine who's going to be second in the East, really, if we're being realistic here. And that means something.
I was going to say, and going forward, you've also got Florida, and then you've got at Arkansas. Missouri could very well be 10-2 this year, or I can see a path for 4 straight losses to end this season because you've already lost to Georgia.
We've seen it so common where Missouri has a great start to the season and then a back-breaking loss like that ends up sending them off the rails. Yeah. That does not need to happen. That does not need to happen.
You're 100% correct. And the good thing for Missouri is you get 2 out of these last 3 games in Como. That is big for them. So I think the most likely scenario for Missouri the rest of the year is 9-3. I'm not going to say which game would be a loss for Missouri, but
Tennessee, Dad, shut up. Come on now.
But I think that's the most likely scenario is 9-3. I think that 8-4 is more likely than 10-2.
I agree with that. All right, let's run through these last 3 games, bro. We're almost an hour in. We got Auburn Vanderbilt. Let's not spend a lot of time on this, man. It was 31-15. Auburn kind of, I thought was going to blow the doors open, but then didn't do anything in the fourth quarter. Not sure why. I didn't watch the game, but big win for Auburn. Second one for Hugh Freeze in the SEC.
Yeah, and I just want to look ahead at Auburn real quick for what they got left. You've got 2 winnable games here back to back. You've got at Arkansas and you've got New Mexico State at home. That would get you to your 6 win mark and be bowl eligible on the season before a matchup in the Iron Bowl. And the Iron Bowl, Arkansas and New Mexico State will put them at 7 wins, not 6. That would put them at 7 wins on the year.
Very realistic of being 7-5 in Hugh Freeze's first year.
Yeah, and that's overachieving for where I had them. I think that I had them going 6-6. But then you also got the Iron Bowl at home this year, and strange things happen when you play that Iron Bowl in Auburn Stadium. So I'm not saying Auburn's going to win that game, but they're going to be very happy with this opening season under Hugh Freeze when you go back and look at it. As long as you can get a win against Arkansas and New Mexico State to round out this season. That's
exactly right, man. And shout out to the running back for Auburn. I think he had like 183 yards, but it's Vanderbilt. Take it how you want. Do you have anything that did you take anything away from this game? Did you get to catch it?
I did not get to catch this game. I didn't get to catch as many football games as I wanted to this weekend.
Dude, I know. It's all good, brother. It's all fun.
Looking ahead at Vanderbilt, they've only got 2 games left because they have a second bye week since they played in week 0. South Carolina and Tennessee. That doing anything for you for Vanderbilt? I think they can play South Carolina decent. Tennessee game does nothing for me. Tennessee is going to wipe the field with them.
Tennessee can wipe the field with one man, and that is Jalen Wright. And I don't see that being Auburn or South Carolina. I could see because South Carolina's defense is terrible. But I do think that I trust Spencer more than I trust Ken Sills, and so that it doesn't really move the needle for me. But let's move on to a game that was possibly the most boring game of the weekend, and that is Kentucky Mississippi State 24-3. By the way, one of the touchdowns for Kentucky was a pick 6, so they literally only had 17 offensive points. Mississippi State had 3. I don't understand. I don't know if Mississippi State's just bad juju for low scoring games. I don't know what's going on, but they're gonna have to change something, brother. Mike Wright having 78 passing yards and their leading rusher having 24 yards against Kentucky's defense that ain't that good. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words, but big win for Kentucky for sure.
I will say, Kentucky's run defense is good. And they held Mississippi State to 73 total yards rushing. And this Mississippi State team, if you can make them one-dimensional trying to get the passing game going, Mississippi State's not going to be able to do much, and that's exactly what happened. I'm curious to see if Will Rogers is going to return this year. I don't know how serious the shoulder injury is, but he wasn't there yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know. I seriously doubt it. There's nothing to play for, dude. And I hate to sound like that. Actually, who does Mississippi State have left? They got Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl, and
This
then
week
who do
we
they
got
have?
Texas A&M.
So they have A&M, USM, University of Southern Miss, and then they have Ole Miss.
I think Mississippi State finishes off 5-7 on the year with a win against Southern Miss. I don't see a path to them winning the Texas A&M game or the Ole Miss game.
Yes, I mean honestly, I don't know. I'm a football guy. I love football, so like if a player can play. But at the end of the day, man, I don't see it. On top of that, has it not felt like that Will Rogers and Zach Arnett have not clicked at all this year?
I don't think that they have. I think that Will Rogers is very frustrated with the play calling and how little he's being able to show his ability. So yeah, I think that they just don't get along very well too. This is just me and looking at it ourselves. They could be getting along great and we're just not seeing it. But I'm with you. I don't think that they're really clicking.
Right. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But let's wrap things up for the recap show and talk about what was hopefully the biggest, what was, hyped up to be the biggest game of the weekend. And that's LSU, Alabama. Alabama did exactly what I thought they would, and that's win by multiple scores because Nick Saban doesn't lose in revenge games, especially at home. Man, I tell you what, Milroe had a freaking day. Jaden Daniels had a day. Unfortunately got hurt. A bad play. I don't know how. It was just a rough in the passer. And that's me not really being a hater. I have no horse in this race. I just think that was one of the most vicious hits I've seen on a quarterback in a long time. And for that not to get called targeting, that was pretty wild. That fit every description possible. It might have even broken Jaden Daniels' jaw. So prayers to him. Hopefully he's healthy. But overall, that didn't, determine the outcome of the game, I don't think, as Alabama got rolling in the second half and they got the big win.
Yeah, both of these quarterbacks just showed out, and looking at their stats, it's almost identical. Jaden Daniels passing the ball, 15 of 24, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Jalen Milroe, 15 of 23, 1 less attempt, 219 yards. The only difference is he did not throw a touchdown or an interception.
He had 4 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Running the ball. Jaden Daniels, 11 carries, 163 yards, and a touchdown. Jalen Milroe, 20 carries, 155 yards, and 4 touchdowns. It was a battle of the quarterbacks. The only other person that really did anything that was huge for either team, because Alabama, they spread the ball out. LSU, it was Malik Neighbors or nobody yesterday. It was Malik Neighbors, 10 receptions, 171 yards. And then 2 players had 3 receptions apiece, and other than that, it was either 2 or 1 for LSU.
That's right. You had Thomas Jr. for LSU, didn't have a ton of yards or a ton of catches, but he had some big time pickups. And then Lacey, they were kind of like the big shot guys because, they both averaged, I think Lacey only had 2 catches, but he averaged, 19 and a half yards per catch. Same thing with Thomas. He had over 10 yards per catch as well. But like you said, dude, like their working horse was Malik Neighbors. 10 receptions, 171 yards, touchdown. Well, it's kind of, you would kind of hope to have 2 or 3 guys get involved a little bit more than that. But regardless, it was, like you mentioned, it was a battle of the quarterbacks, which we kind of knew it was gonna be that. I thought it'd be a little bit lower scoring, just because I thought Bama's defense was going to perform a little bit better. But then again, they got stops in timely manner. Timely. I can't think of the word.
They got the timely stops that they needed. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
But this game, the outcome didn't turn out how I thought it would, because I said LSU would win this game. That's because the game went exactly how I thought it would as far as the scoring. I thought it would be a shootout, but
You
I
thought the
thought
whole like first half, the way it was like back and forth, touchdown, tie ball game into the third quarter.
yeah. So that's where I thought the game was going to go, but I thought that would benefit LSU until Jaden Daniels went out. That's the way the game went. It looked like LSU was gonna be favored there towards the end. But when Jaden Daniels went out, the offense lost all its mojo for LSU, and you mentioned it. LSU cannot stop anybody. And
No.
that is exactly what happened. Alabama took advantage of it. Well, Jalen Milroe took advantage of it, and Alabama got the win. And I know that something crazy can happen, but Alabama locked up the West with that game because when you look ahead at the rest of their schedule this year, Alabama has got Kentucky this week. It is in Lexington, but Alabama is going to win this week. Then they play Chattanooga before the Iron Bowl. At worst, Alabama is going to finish 2-1 in this stretch, and I don't see. I really can't see a path to them not going 3-0.
Yeah, I mean they're making the SEC championship, and let's be honest, their path to a playoff is still there.
It's still there. They have to win out. They literally all they have to do is win out. They don't have to worry about a team losing anywhere. All they have to do is win out, including the SEC championship game, and they're in.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. A great game up until about the midway third quarter when you kind of felt the tide to turn. Honestly, it's one of those things where Alabama does a really good job coming out of half. Now I understand LSU scored their first possession coming out of the half, but Alabama they answered right back with a touchdown and then got that turnover, went up again, and then you just kind of knew like, all right, Alabama's got this one in the bag. Even though they were only up 7 at the time, you just felt like the wind just dropped out of their, LSU sails. They weren't going anywhere. And then obviously Jaden Daniels getting hurt and then in the concussion protocol, Garrett Nussmeier had to come in. I thought he made some pretty good throws, but it just overall wasn't too accurate. I mean, he was 5 of 10 for 53 yards. And that was the game, man. This is the game that unfortunately I missed a lot of as we got the notification that there's a wildfire in my front yard. So it was unfortunate I didn't get to see this, but at the end of the day, the outcome is pretty much what I predicted, just a lot higher of a score, even though I should have known that. LSU's defense is terrible, and Alabama has the capability of scoring. And so overall, it's kind of crazy how both of these teams were in the exact same position or really close to the exact same position as they were last year as far as record-wise. And this year, Alabama got the better of them because I'm telling you, man, Nick Saban doesn't lose revenge games.
Yep, you're 100% right. The only other thing I have about this game is, of course, Brad and Gary were on the broadcast for this game. I don't know how the whole broadcast thing works about who broadcasts what game, but yesterday was the SEC doubleheader, and it was actually a triple header on CBS yesterday. You had the Big 12 game, Big 10 game at noon. You had the CBS 3:30 game, which was Georgia and Missouri. I can't remember who the announcers were for that one, but then you get the CBS night game with Brad and Gary on the call for Alabama.
Of course, dude. Hey, that's that Alabama treatment, dog.
That's exactly right. And I'm not gonna miss Brad and Gary whenever SEC is not on CBS anymore. But that's a whole different note there. What you got?
Bet. It's confirmed. All right, that's the wrap up of the recap. By the way, I'm gonna go ahead and just put that down. It is confirmed. Tennessee is playing Missouri at 3:30, which means guess who gets Brad and Gary?
Well, see, I'm glad that you said that because I've seen 2 different things today. I saw Tennessee was going to be on at 3:30, and then I saw that they were going to be on at 7:30 on SEC Network. So I didn't know, but
so because LSU and Florida lost, Florida LSU's got the SEC Network game, and then Ole Miss and Georgia have the ESPN game, which makes sense because that's where game day is going. So it makes total sense. In my opinion, I do think the SEC game of the week technically would be Ole Miss Georgia, so you would think they would have the 3:30 game.
But
I think
Georgia owned like 4 or 5 weeks.
exactly, and that's
Tennessee
exactly what
Georgia will be on next week.
yeah, so they only get, I think, at most 5 or maybe 6 games for a team to cover, and then they have to ask for permission after that.
Yeah, it's 4, and then you can ask for permission for a 5th.
Oh wow! So they did it this way so that they don't even have to run into that type of an issue, at least for this week. So I think that helps us out tremendously. Now we're late in, times change. So to be honest with you, it's going to be a night game after the second quarter, anyways. Yeah. But I think that helps us out tremendously as far as, because I mean, let's be honest, Tennessee on the road at night,
it's not very good. Other than
unless it's our son, we're not doing anything good. But no, let's get into the predictions segment.
Yep, let's do it. We got a couple of options for the noon games. You want to hit Vanderbilt at South Carolina first? That is at noon. I believe that one is SEC Network.
Am I correct? It is. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is. And let's just be honest here. Let's keep it short and sweet. And South Carolina should get the win here.
They should get the win. I'm going to try to look it up real quick. I think it was it 14.5 that I told you the spread in this game?
Yeah, I think that's what you said. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that is correct. So try to get it pulled. It is 14 even at this point. Do you think Vanderbilt covers the spread? Do you think they keep it within 2 touchdowns? Because South Carolina's defense is not good.
I do. I think
Vanderbilt cover.
And a very, very easy way of explaining it, and I know what happens week to week doesn't translate or correlate, but I think Auburn's a better team than South Carolina right now. And Vanderbilt, I think, was within 15 or 16 points of them. So, yeah, I think they cover the 14.
All right, so we both have South Carolina in that game.
Yes.
Next one is Alabama traveling to Lexington to play the Wildcats. That is at 12 Eastern on ESPN. Initial thoughts on this game?
Upset alert. I'm fucking joking. I'm sorry. Excuse my language. Bama's going to win by a lot here. And I think the Stoops and the Wildcats get embarrassed again in a big game. And if that happens, what is the narrative around Mark Stoops?
I was just going to ask you that question. What if Kentucky goes 6-6 this year? And I just want to look real quick because we didn't touch Kentucky as far as scheduling goes during the recap. Kentucky going forward this year has Alabama this week. Then they play against South Carolina. That game is in Columbia, South Carolina next week. And then you've got to go to Louisville for your rivalry game the last week of the season.
That looks to be 2 guaranteed losses, is what it looks to be.
Possibly a third?
I don't know, man. South Carolina's bad.
But South Carolina can score points too.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Dude, if they lose out, Mark Stoops got to be on the hot seat, bro.
That's why I was going to say, especially if they lose, if they go 6-6 this year, and I think even going 7-5 I think Mark Stoops is going to be on the hot seat for going into next season. I don't think they fire him this year.
Just can't win the big games, dude. What's the biggest game other than Florida? But look how bad Florida is. I mean, he just doesn't. I don't know. Can't put it together.
And you look at Kentucky fans, how upset they were after the loss to Tennessee. And, you look, even some of the worst Tennessee teams in the past couple of years, or in the past, we'll say 10 years, Kentucky only won, 2 games?
Yeah, I believe Stoops is 2-9 against Tennessee.
Yeah, so, I mean.
And he only won one of those games because Jarrett Gantano had like 5 passing touchdowns to Kentucky.
Was it 5 or was it 7? I don't even remember at this point.
It might have been 19. I don't know. It was a lot.
Yeah.
But no, I think Alabama wins. I just didn't know, you got to start talking about getting that scene warm if they get embarrassed again, especially at home. I get it. It's Alabama. I get it. They're the number one team in the West. But guess what? We have to play them every year. I mean, so you got to at least be competitive in this game if you're Kentucky, but know that, it's probably going to be an L. So,
yeah. So next game, we're going to talk about the boys. We got Tennessee traveling to Como. This is the 3:30 game on CBS, as we mentioned earlier. What are your thoughts on this game? Because this game does make me a little bit nervous.
I'm not nervous at all. I think the boys win. I think Brady Cook's going to make some plays. Don't get me wrong. But I think our boys are playing their best ball right now. And I'm not just talking about because we beat the crap out of UConn. I think Joe Milton in his last 3 games is thrown for over 200 yards in each of the last 3 games. He's not thrown an interception in the last 3 games, and he's being accurate with the ball.
Yeah, he's completing over 75% of his passes in the last 3
games. That's insane. That's insane because he's typically a 60 to 65% guy. And you pair that up with Jalen Wright and this offensive line, and they're just bullying kids. And then you pair that up with our pass rush that's going to come alive again at some point, because even against freaking UConn, we couldn't get anything going as a pass rush. But look, credit to UConn. They had a great game plan, just like Kentucky, and that's getting the ball out of his hands quick. But I think that plays into our favor against Missouri. Brady Cook is too big of a baller. He's going to want to take those deep shots. He's going to want to be competitive, and thus I think he's going to hold the ball a little bit. And I think our defensive line is going to eat coming this week, and I think the boys get it done.
And I think that's a very good assessment of this game. I think you're right in all that, but here's 2 things that concern me about this game is Brady Cook is a true dual threat quarterback. He can beat you running the ball. He can beat you passing the ball. And in the past, that has not bode well for Tennessee. So if he can get that going, it makes me nervous.
No, I agree. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say I agree with that, but I also look at the spot of the game for Missouri being right after Georgia, we basically had a bye week to prepare for Missouri. I think that could be a big advantage to us as well.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up whenever I started talking about the reason I think Tennessee's going to win the game.
There you go.
Yeah, but the other concern I have is Luther Burden. Even against good teams other than yesterday when he got hurt, and that's also another thing. Is he going to play against Tennessee because of that injury? We don't know how serious it is. But Luther Burden, who is Tennessee going to put on him since Tennessee is down their best corner in Kamal Haddon? It's going to be interesting to see. I know Tennessee's got other guys that can cover him, but Luther Burden has done well this year, even against some of the best teams that they have played.
Well, you're gonna have to kind of cover. I mean, so you're gonna have to run. One, Gabe Judy is playing pretty good. It's not Lally. It's not it's. Oh God, we're gonna hear that so many times this weekend too. Gabe Judy Lally. No, it's Gabe Judy Lally.
So it is Lally. I've always heard it Lolly. So it's Lally.
Or it could be Lolly. But it's not. It's not Muhammad Ali. It's not. Yeah. It's not. It's whatever, dude. They put way too much emphasis on it, but it could be Lolly. Gabe Judy Lolly. But he's been balling. And then you also got Danico Slaughter, who I thought was going to be our defensive breakout player of the year. Now he hasn't really quite lived up to that, but he's still one of our most physical cornerbacks. So I think we're going to be okay there, but you got to have safety help over the top when it comes to defending Luther Burden. And so that's going to be the game plan there. But here's the thing. You cover him, you force Missouri to be going straight through Schrader. Now, let me say this.
Schrader or Theo Wees. You've also got Theo Wees to worry about. Now, he didn't do a whole lot yesterday, but Theo Wees is also he is a big weapon.
I can promise you this. As a Tennessee fan, we're going to make Brady Cook look like a Heisman contender regardless. Oh, yeah. So
because they're going to focus on shutting down the run game.
Exactly. If we can limit Schrader to less than 80 yards rushing and then make Brady Cook beat us, which has been our recipe all year, it's been working most of the time. Then, like I said, I do kind of believe in the boys in this one. I really do. I think Missouri, there's just the spot it's in, and then also their tendencies late in the season. I could see Missouri losing back-to-back games, I could honestly see them losing another one before the end of the season.
Yeah, you brought it up. The reason I feel good about this game is the spot that it's in. It is after the Georgia loss, and you've mentioned it about teams a couple of times this year. I think Missouri lets the Georgia game beat them twice. And I think Tennessee comes in and they take one. Believe it or not, Tennessee is a 1.5-point dog in this game as of right now. Yeah. I think that Tennessee goes in and they win this game. They keep their East hopes alive. Yes, it is slim, but Tennessee keeps their East hopes alive this weekend.
For a couple hours at least.
Yeah, for a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we both got Tennessee in this one. The next game on the schedule, we have Auburn traveling to Fayetteville to play against Arkansas. This game is at 4 Eastern on the SEC Network.
Let's be honest, this game isn't moving the needle for either one of us, but is it not now a really toss-up game?
I'm not going to say it's not moving the needle for me because it's not like Tennessee, Missouri. It's not like Georgia, Ole Miss. But after the way
for the Music City Bowl, dog, that's what we're.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. But the way that Auburn played yesterday, you mentioned it. It's made it more of a ball game. It's made it more of one that I think we can talk about a little bit next week as to what happened. What do you think about this game?
So I don't think Auburn can score a lot of points, but I think their defense is decent. And Arkansas, I don't know what to think because they're so freaking inconsistent, but they lose a lot of one-score games. Now, they just won a one-score game. So did that game against Florida flip the script? They scored 39 points and won a 3-point ball game. So I think they might have found something. I think Arkansas actually pulls. I would consider this an upset. I don't know what the line is, but it's in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I kind of believe that they might get it done against Auburn.
Yeah, Arkansas is a 2.5-point favorite now with it being at home. I'm going to go the opposite end. I'm going to take Auburn in this game.
That's fair.
I liked what I saw from Arkansas yesterday, but Auburn has been consistent all year long as far as who they are. They're a running team that has finally got the passing game going a little bit. I think they've got a little something going in the passing game. It's not like what Joe Milton has done. It's not like what Brady Cook does for Missouri. It's not like Graham Mertz, but they're getting the passing game going a little bit more. And I think that combined with Auburn's consistency on defense, how good they are on defense, I think that's going to get them a road win this weekend, and they're going to become bowl eligible this weekend in Fayetteville.
There you go. Okay. I like it, though. That gives us something to give us a reason to watch that game for sure, because we got a little bit of skin in it now. We got one picking one, and the other. So let's move right along because we're getting through these pretty good. 7 o'clock Eastern on the ESPN network, probably the game of the week. You got Ole Miss traveling into Georgia, and Georgia's going to win.
Georgia's going to win. This is the game that Georgia's going to get up for. But they're going to have to get up for 2 weeks in a row because you do have the Tennessee game afterwards.
Is that not 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks in 3 weeks in a row?
I don't think that they got up for Missouri. I really don't. So that's why I'm going to say they have to get up 2 weeks in a row. But all right, so here's a question I bring up. Which game is actually more important for Georgia? Is it this game or is it the Tennessee game?
1,000% Tennessee game.
All right. So is there another, I'm not going to say letdown weekend because, we just said it. Georgia's going to win this game. They're going to do just enough to win the game. But is there a little bit of a letdown this weekend that gives Ole Miss a chance to win? Because I think that Tennessee is going to get Georgia's best shot next week. There is no doubt about that. So is there a chance that Georgia has a letdown and Ole Miss, maybe has a chance there towards the end?
I mean, there's a chance, bro. Every team starts out 0-0 when the clock starts. The problem is it's Georgia. And after the game starts, it all depends on flow. I mean, is Beck on? Because, I felt like Beck was off a little bit last week against Missouri, or last night against Missouri, which is why I'm really confident that he bounces back. I even told Dad that I think Georgia may win by 2 scores. But then again, Ole Miss is capable of scoring, but Ole Miss's defense is decent. They're not bad. I just think, man, at the end of the day, I said it after Georgia beat the crap out of who did they beat? 2 weeks ago, last week.
Florida.
Not Florida. Yeah, it was Florida. Yeah, after they beat Florida the way they did, man, I've been a firm believer they're going to win out and make it to the playoffs. So I'm going to stick with that. I hate to say that because that ends our mathematical chances of making it to Atlanta if Georgia wins this game, and it doesn't matter at that point if we beat Missouri. Other than we hope for 9-3, or 10-2 maybe. But no, I think Georgia gets the win. There is technically a possibility. So I mean, I don't want to. I guess I'll gladly eat my words if Ole Miss wins this game, because then the game next week will be for all the marbles to make it to Atlanta, and I want that so badly, dude. And in a year that every Tennessee fan, I can promise you, has thought that this has been a down year, and we're just not as good as we were, and maybe all that is true. But to sit here and tell me that in the second week of November and we still have a mathematical chance of making it to Atlanta, I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do think that Ole Miss's offense is not going to be able to stop Georgia enough, and I think Georgia will be able to stop Ole Miss just enough. I'm not quite on the 2 touchdowns, but I think that the Vegas spread of 11.5 is about correct. I think that Georgia wins by 10 in this game.
Okay. I got you. Well, good teams win. Great teams cover. That's exactly right. Let's go to a game that's kind of lost a lot of juice, and that's the fact that Florida won 5 games in 6 weeks and ain't done nothing since. And then you got LSU, who came off a pretty heartbreaking loss last night. Let's be honest. They were in the game. They were going blow for blow until a massive hit on their quarterback, and it's unclear whether or not he's playing this week. So Florida, LSU, night game in Baton Rouge. It's hard to win at night in Baton Rouge. But who do you got in this game?
I know we can't wait on this, but if I knew for sure that Jaden Daniels was out, I might lean Florida. But ultimately, I'm going to take it being Death Valley at night. Even with Garrett Nussmeier, if he is at quarterback, I think that he is good enough to beat this Florida team. Florida, I think, is going to have a very tough stretch down the road. I've already said I think that they go 0-3. They miss a bowl game once again. Or sorry, not once again, because they made one last year. But I think that that LSU wins this game. I think the spread in this one is like 14, somewhere around there. I do think it's closer than that because LSU cannot stop anybody. But LSU ultimately wins this game at home.
So my initial reaction is it doesn't matter. LSU's going to win this game. Like, regardless if Jaden Daniels is in or not, just because Florida, in my opinion, is just not good. But then the more I think about it, LSU's defense is absolutely god-awful. And Graham Mertz is a very accurate quarterback. And for that reason, I kind of think that Florida has a chance. And kind of like how we said with Missouri, if they came off the game against Georgia, does that beat them twice? Does that Alabama loss, that Alabama lost to LSU, LSU lost to Alabama. Geez, if I can talk. Does that affect them mentally going into what I would consider one of the bigger rivalries in the SEC, and that's Florida LSU?
But you could also turn that around and say, does that bad Arkansas loss beat Florida twice?
And that's fair, dude. That's fair. Florida's done for the rest of the season. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think Florida is done. And I said that to begin the show, Robert, and that's the fact that Florida isn't going bowling. So give me LSU, dude.
All right, so both of us taking LSU in this game.
I do think Graham Mertz could have a day, though.
I think that he'll have a day.
Yeah, I think
also another stat that we didn't bring up is Florida is not very good away from home this year.
They're not good at home either, unless it's Tennessee.
Well, I've got it here. Florida after let's see. So that game yesterday was at home. Florida is 1-2 on the road this year, and and they also had a loss on a neutral site game. That was the game in Jacksonville. So they're not very good on the road this year.
They're not good at all.
No, which we've mentioned it numerous times. That's what makes the Tennessee loss to Florida that much worse.
Yeah.
Last game on the schedule, we have Mississippi State traveling to College Station to play against Texas A&M. This game is going to be on ESPN2 at 7:30 Eastern. Does this game do anything for you?
Not a bit. Mississippi State in their last. Let's see. Mississippi State in their last 3 games, 7 points, 13 points, 3 points. Give me A&M by about 22.
22. You think?
Yeah, I think it's not even close. I think it's not even close. Dude, A&M's defense is legit. Even though they're 5-4, Jimbo sucks at offense, but Mississippi State is just not moving the ball, dude. They're not scoring. I think Texas A&M wins pretty easy.
Yeah, so here's my thing. And, we brought it up earlier. I don't know how serious the Will Rogers shoulder injury is. If Will Rogers is back playing in this game, Robert says maybe the bowl committee will give Florida a special honorary bowl, the Viagra Bowl. They need a lift.
All right, dude. And back to your regular
I just gotta say, Robert, I love whenever you tune in. I appreciate all the comments that you give us. You watch from start to finish every single time.
Hour and a half in, and that man's still with us.
Yeah, he's been with us ever since we've gone live. But anyway, as I was saying, I think Will Rogers leading Mississippi State gives them a chance. I think Texas A&M would still win the game, but we mentioned we don't know if Will Rogers is even coming back this year. Don't know how serious that injury is. So I've also got Texas A&M in this game. They are playing in College Station. They do well in College Station. So that is going to wrap up our Week 11 predictions. So now we're on to the best part of the show. Last week, Skylar and I both went 6-2, missing different games. We both missed the Florida-Arkansas game. We both picked Florida to win. You picked Texas A&M, I believe. Is that correct?
No, I picked Ole Miss to win. I picked A&M for the upset pick of the week.
Okay, I guess I had that marked wrong. So you actually went 7-1 then.
Okay, yeah, I picked Ole Miss to win. I'll go back and rewatch the show just to make sure. Robert, we enjoy you, bro. And definitely love the fact that y'all hang out in here. But I'm pretty sure I picked Ole Miss to win, but then the upset pick of the week, because you asked me what your upset pick of the week, and I was like A&M. I could be wrong. I'll go back and listen. But
so I'll go off of you though. I trust you with that. So you went 7-1 last week. I went 6-2. I also picked LSU to upset Alabama. Both of us were close in our upset picks. Like you mentioned, you picked the Texas A&M upset of Ole Miss. I picked Kansas State over Texas, and it went to overtime, I believe.
Why didn't we pick Oklahoma State over Oklahoma? Oklahoma's bad, dude. Come on.
I was so tempted to pick that one too.
And Bedlam, bro. Come on.
And that, that's the final bedlam for the foreseeable future. So
I hate that, man. I hate this new world we're about to enter. But hey, why not? So,
yep. So you want to go? Well, I'll give the overall record. So, Skylar, after last week, you were sitting at now 76-18 overall. I am sitting at 72-14. I am 4 games back, but I'm going to make that up in the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to come back and win this thing. I
doubt it.
You want to go first? You want to go first on your upset pick for this week?
Yeah. First off, because I don't want it to bite me in the butt, I don't think you should trust me. You kind of made me feel like I did choose A&M, but in my mind, just so that everybody's listening, I really did think Ole Miss was going to win that game. But I'll go back and try to get the facts straight. But I'm pretty sure I chose Ole Miss. And then
you might be right. And I think now that I think about it, you said that you thought Ole Miss was going to win, but you could see the outside shot that A&M wins.
Yeah.
I probably just marked it wrong.
It's all good. No, but see, that's the thing is I know you take notes, so I don't see how you would have got it wrong. But anyways, upset pick of the week brought to you by yours truly. Michael. Who you picking?
I'm going first.
Absolutely, you're going first because there's two games that I kind of like on this list.
All right, so
I
I was just looking again to make sure that the line is correct on this.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to go.
Take West Virginia. Take West Virginia. Oklahoma's ass. Take it. I'm joking. Don't do it.
I'm going to do it. West Virginia plus 13 against Oklahoma. Oklahoma has dropped 2 straight games to Kansas and to Oklahoma State. They do get one. They do get one at home again this week against West Virginia. West Virginia is a decent team. They have played very well this year, especially here lately. I'm going to take West Virginia to win this game outright. This is a 5-point play. I also want to throw, I don't want to throw another game out there yet because I think Skylar is not going to pick this game, but I do want to mention it if he hasn't picked it.
I don't know. I might. All right. I'm all for chaos, brother. I'm all for chaos, dude. And honestly, both games that I'm looking at would cause a lot of chaos. It's just which one do I want to go with? And I'll go ahead and tell you both games. And when you gave me one, which made me really think about it, but it's right here on my list too. So the first one, and I kind of told you I was picking it, and I kind of sold my soul, and I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it, is Utah over Washington. Washington had a great game against USC, scored 500,000. USC's defense, though, like Biden's border policy, they let everybody in the end zone. However, Miami is playing Florida State, and Florida State's playing some shaky ball lately. And I could absolutely see Miami pulling this upset.
See, I mentioned this game earlier, and you kind of said, I don't think so.
The problem is, it's literally right here next to the game that I'm looking at. And I had to look at it. I'm like, oh, that does actually make sense. Like, I think that could. What's the line on the Miami-Florida State game?
I believe it is an even 14.
It's 14?
It's 14 and a half.
Miami's 4. Well, so they had the terrible loss against Georgia Tech, and then they followed that up with a win against Clemson. I can't remember how their schedule's gone. Let's see. Yeah, so they followed that up with a loss to North Carolina, and then they beat Clemson, beat Virginia in a nail biter, and then they lost. They lost to NC State.
They lost to NC State yesterday?
Never mind. 20-6. I take it back. F the Hurricanes. I'm not. What the heck? No. Give me Utah over Washington. How the hell did Miami lose to who? They lost to NC State?
I didn't even see that yesterday, to be honest.
Why is that not a story, dude? That, you know what? Fire Cristobal. A joke. Pathetic.
So you're taking
Utah over Washington. I believe that's a 10-point play, which means it's a 5-point, or it's a 5-point play because it's a 10-point spread.
Is it even 10?
I really hope Cam Rising is playing this game. That would be a hell of a showdown between
Cam Rising's out for the year.
Damn it, dude. All right, that's fine. Utah still find a way.
Yeah. So actually 2 games that I want to mention because I threw this one out to you, but I don't know if Riley Leonard is healthy. You've also got Duke is a 10.5-point dog to North Carolina. North Carolina has been reeling as of late. They did get a win yesterday against Campbell, I think, but they've dropped 2 straight conference games, and one of them was Virginia. The other one was Georgia Tech, I believe. Mm-hmm. So watch out for that game. The other one that I was really kind of leaning towards, but I don't have a good grasp on either one of the teams. BYU is a 7-point dog at home to Iowa State. I could see BYU getting a win in that game at home. But like I said, I don't know much about either one of those teams, so I didn't have a good feel for it. That takes care of our upset picks of the week. Guys, a little spoiler. I'm not going to come out and say it because it is still in the works. But we've got a little something for you guys that might be coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're still trying to work through the details. But just a little spoiler coming your way that Skylar and I talked about this past week. It is some big news for the show, but like I said, we've still got some fine details that we need to work out before we can get into it. But just a little spoiler for you guys. So hopefully y'all will keep tuning in, and in the next couple of weeks, maybe you can see what we got going on.
I think it'll be fun. Let's hope and pray that I still have a studio and a home to do this in. And I think we'll be all right. I think they're taking care of it. Just a lot of smoke outside. But no, man, this has been fun. We've done another show. I apologize for the length of the show, but there was a lot of games. There was a lot of big games that happened last week. So, of course, that took up a lot of our time doing the review and the recap. However, this weekend, there is no shortage of games either. There's going to be a lot of games. SEC, maybe not as many, but across the country, there's going to be some games that really start to shape up what the Final Four is going to look like. So whenever the CFP come out Tuesday, again, it's all going to work itself out. It's not going to make sense because Georgia should have never dropped to number 2, and I'm still a firm believer in that. I think they need to be number 1. That should have never been. I don't even care what the resume is, bro. Like, they've won back-to-back, and they're undefeated. What do you want more from them? All right? I don't care what they look like. I do in a sense, but at the end of the day, that becomes a conversation once you have a loss or two. But when you're undefeated, you're doing your job, you're getting wins, and you deserve to be number 1 until somebody knocks you off. And it's going to be fun to talk about it next week, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yep, that's exactly right. And guys, have a good rest of your week. And because this will happen before we go live again, a shout out to all the veterans. Next Saturday is Veterans Day, so a shout out to all the veterans. Salute everyone that is served in our military. Thank you for all that you have done for us. Skylar, do you have anything else before we close out the show?
Just a massive shout out to Robert. I mean, look at this chat, dude. My man's filling it up. He hopes and prays that we stay safe and the firefighters do their job and they stay safe as well. And just a massive shout out to Robert, man. It's awesome to do this show live and actually have somebody communicating with us throughout the show. So massive shout out to him, and go Big Orange.
Yep. Go Big Orange, guys. Have a great week. Enjoy this week, and then enjoy college football this coming weekend. A lot of big games. So we will see you guys next Sunday.